Good morning and welcome to this meeting of the SWestrans Board on Friday the 31st of March 2023. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded, and the recording will be made available on the website for public listening following the meeting. Remote participants on Teams, please follow the good practice guidance, which includes muting microphones and switching off your video when you're not addressing the meeting. Writing speak in the Teams chat function when you want to contribute. No material should be posted in the chat function if it is intended to be part of the discussion. The usual standing orders apply, including that any votes will be undertaken by roll call. Please speak clearly and directly into the microphone when making contributions, and when referring to reports, please provide reference to the relevant page and paragraphs to allow everyone to follow. We'll now move on to agenda item 1, which is the sediment and apologies. Claire, can you provide sediment and apologies, please?
Okay, thank you, Chair. We've got apologies this morning from Councillor Willie Scobie. Just to be clear who's in the hall and who isn't, we've got yourself and the Vice Chair in the hall and the remaining 4 board members all on Teams this morning. We've also got 2 observers in the room, Hugh McCready and Graham Whiteley. Thank you.
Thanks, Claire. I see you got your hand up, Jim Dempster.
Yes, Chair, just to apologise that I had arranged a meeting at 11 o'clock this morning, which I have to attend, but I'll only be going for a short time until I return, so I will leave the meeting at some stage this morning. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Jim. We'll now move on to agenda item 2, which is declarations of interest. Do any board members have any declarations of interest they wish to make? I take silence as no. Move on to agenda item 3, which is the minute of the meeting on January the 27th, 2023. Can we approve the minute as an accurate record? Get nods in the room here. I'll take silence as acceptance. Thank you. We now move on to agenda item 4. This is the board membership update. This report provides a procedural update on the membership of the board. Claire, do you have anything to add to this?
Thank you, Chair. Only since the report was written that Richard Brodie has confirmed that he's continuing as a substitute for SWestrans.
Thank you very much. First of all, I would just like to thank Councillor Maureen Johnson for her contributions to the board, and also to welcome Councillor Willie Scobie. Although he's not present today, I'm sure he'll add to the debate as we go along. Now move on to agenda item 5, which is the report by external audit on the 2021 to 2022 audit of South West Scotland Transport Partnership. This report is to present the SWestrans audited accounts, annual accounts, and the external auditor's report on the 2021-22 audit of SWestrans in line with the required standards. We have Rebecca Lister. Thank you for joining us. Is that you, Rebecca? From Auditors Grant Thornton is available to take any questions, and I think you're going to give a short presentation and touch on some key points and the reason for the delay. So over to you, Rebecca.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. So this is the annual audit report, which essentially sets out the findings from the 2021-22 external audit of the partnership. I'll take the report as read, but just pull out some of the key highlights from the report itself. So we plan to issue an unmodified opinion later today once the annual audit, annual report and accounts and the letter of representation have been approved and signed. I just want to highlight the delay in completing the audit. So this is not a reflection on the partnership itself, but was due to resourcing constraints, which resulted in the prioritisation of the council audit. So that essentially resulted in a delay within the audit of the SWestrans partnership. In terms of the work that was undertaken on the external audit, so we had two significant risk areas that were outlined within the audit plan that was presented last year. These were around management override of controls, which is a risk that is mandated by the international auditing standards for all organisations. And we also had a risk around expenditure recognition. So procedures performed are outlined in pages 7 and 8 of the report and agenda pack, pages 19 and 20. And the work performed here didn't identify any material issues in these significant risk areas. So we tested a number of journal entries and we didn't identify any issues around management override of controls in those areas. And similar within expenditure recognition, we didn't identify any issues within that area either. We didn't identify any audit adjustments impacting the financial position of the partnership from the draft accounts that were provided to audit from our work that was performed, but we did, however, identify a couple of disclosure adjustments, which are outlined on page 17 of the report and page 29 of the agenda pack. And management has adjusted for all the disclosure amendments that were identified as a result of the audit. We also perform wider scope work around governance arrangements and financial sustainability. So this work is outlined within pages 13 to 14 of the report, and that's pages 25 to 26 within the agenda pack. So our work around the governance arrangements didn't identify any significant weaknesses in this area. However, we do continue to report on a recommendation that was raised in 2018-19 relating to independent assurance for SWestrans by internal audit. So we believe that there's an opportunity for the partnership to obtain independent assurance over key strategic areas, including governance, risk management, and internal controls relevant to the partnership. So we continue to report on this recommendation. The second area that we looked at was around financial sustainability. So again, we didn't identify any significant weaknesses in this area. However, we have highlighted the fact that financial planning is short-term focused. However, we do recognise the fact that this is due to the one-year settlements that are provided by the Scottish Government and the Council, which we do recognise makes it difficult for the partnership to plan for longer term. We do, however, believe it's important to continue to consider medium to longer term financial planning, including things like potential scenario analysis on expected funding and expenditure, which would help the partnership in forward planning for strategic risks and priorities for the partnership and its future financial sustainability. So overall, the quality of the annual report and accounts and the corresponding working papers that were provided to us were of a good quality, which, as evidenced in this report, resulted in minimal findings. So we would just like this opportunity to thank the finance team and Janet in particular for their cooperation throughout the audit. 21-22 was also our last year of auditing the partnership. So again, we would just like to thank the partnership and the finance team for supporting the audit process over our appointment as we hand over to Audit Scotland. So I'll pause there and happy to take any questions that anyone has.
Thanks very much, Rebecca. The Audit Scotland deadline on the 30th of November, is there any risk with, going beyond that?
So we are not performing the audit for 22-23, so Audit Scotland will be taking over the audit for next year, so will be one for them to comment around reaching the deadline for next year. But again, we were unable to meet the 30th of November deadline due to resourcing constraints on our side.
Thanks very much. I'll open it up to board members first of all. Any board members, questions for Rebecca? Councillor Wood, Andrew.
Thank you, Chair. It was really just to touch on that point about long-term planning. Would it be possible and acceptable for the board to do a hypothetical 3-year or 5-year plan, and would that be acceptable?
Yes, thank you, Councillor. So I think consideration of that medium to longer term planning is what essentially we would recommend that members and management look at. Currently, we do recognise that there is challenges around that, especially where there's only the 1 year funding settlements. However, we do note that especially in the last couple of years, there's been a lot of uncertainties around rising inflation and interest rates as well. And so that consideration of that medium to longer term financial planning is something that, even if it's in a hypothetical sense, looking at scenario analysis, if interest rates went up or down by X amount, what impact would that have on expenditure? What's the potential funding scenarios looking like? So we do think that is something that the board should consider.
Thanks very much, Rebecca. I've got Douglas. Do you want to come in?
Yeah, just to respond to Andrew's, and thank you, Rebecca, for your presentation and for the audit. And I would like to thank Grant Thornton for their 5 years of very hard work on the audits that they've undertaken for us. But that hypothetical planning is something that we are considering within management at the moment, because given the pressures we've had this year and other pressures we'll discuss later in the board, I think it's something that we need to we take on board, and I think it's something that we'll build into our business plan for the coming year.
Thank you, Douglas. Has that been helpful, Andrew?
John, it has actually. In all fairness to you, I do appreciate that. What I would, though, like the board to consider, and that is that we make representation to the new Transport Minister, in that we would very much appreciate if they were able to give us a financial budget for 3 years or 5 years to assist us in making it less of a hypothetical sort of situation.
Yep, thank you very much. I don't think there's any harm in getting in touch with the new Transport Minister, who happens to be Kevin Stewart at this moment in time. Thanks, Andrew. Are there any other board members? Don't see any observers wishing to add anything? No. Members of the public? No. Okay, with that then, members, we'll move to the recommendations, which is to receive the external auditor's report, which we have done. 2, to approve the letter of representation to be certified by the Treasurer and appended to the audit report as detailed at the Appendix 2. 3 is to approve the audited accounts, which will be certified by the Treasurer and Grant Thornton as detailed in Appendix 3. And note that the certified accounts will be made available to all members, and they will be available on the SWestrans website as detailed in paragraph 3.4, and quite happy to write to the Transport Minister. Thank you very much. We'll now move on to agenda item 6. This is the draft revenue expenditure budget of 2023-24. This report presents the draft revenue budget for the coming financial year and seeks the board's agreement to the budget as set out in Table 1 of the report. This is your report, Janet. Have you anything to add to the report?
I've nothing to add to the report, Chair.
Thank you, Janet. I'll open it up to board members. No. Any observers? No. Members of the public? Very good. We'll just move to the recommendations then. The recommendation is to agree the draft revenue budget for 2023-24 as set out in Table 1. Are we happy to... Oh, Karen?
Sorry, I'm slow today. It's not really a question about approving or not approving. It's just how it links into some of the other decisions that we'll be making. So I recognise that we've got a kind of finite budget, but actually some of the implications in the local bus paper later require probably more money than is in that pot. So I guess it's just that recognition that we may need to make asks elsewhere. So I think absolutely comfortable with the paper, but just that kind of broader point. And I think linking back to Councillor Wood's point, perhaps a broader letter to the Transport Minister about some other challenges as well.
Yeah, thanks for that. Because one thing did cross my mind is the Scottish Government revenue of 259,250. It's the same level as 2012, the 2011-2012. What we used to get, 12 years ago or 10 years ago, whatever it is, doesn't go as far nowadays. So, yeah, good point. Thanks, Vice Chair. Anyway, happy to note the recommendations. Yep. Thank you, members. We'll now move on to agenda item 7. This is the SWestrans Annual Report 2021-2022. This report presents the SWestrans Annual Report as required by guidance. The annual report provided as the appendix covers the operational and financial year from the 1st of April 2021 to the 31st of March 2022. Grant Coulter is here for the report. Have you anything to add, Grant?
Nothing more to add, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll open it up to board members. Karen, Vice Chair.
Thank you. Again, it's a great report and an amazing amount of detail in there. I guess it's just, is there something we can be doing that's a little bit more external facing? So again, lots of difficult decisions, some really key work around the regional transport strategy. This feels a really good prompt to start a little bit more about kind of external comms, and now Douglas has a little bit more resource. I wonder whether we can be looking at that kind of comms strategy a little bit more broadly. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks. I'll bring Douglas in.
Yes, I don't just want to steal Grant's thunder, obviously, as well. No, it's something as part of the regional transport strategy, and it may be something you wish to raise at that point as well, but it's something that's come out very clearly. We need to be much more public-facing, much more simple-to-read, easy-access versions of some of the decisions and some of the very complicated matters that we deal with. So yes, as Vice Chair says, I think that's something we will take on board. This is a very old reporting style. It's for the old RTS, even though it's based on that. We've got a new one coming up. Therefore, we need to move with that and actually come with a much better, for public-facing, simpler to understand design going forward. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks very much, Douglas. One thing I did notice in the appendix, there's a number of completed things, can they be taken out, for example, and, a bit of tidying up in the appendix. I'm sure that's appropriate. Any observers? Graham Wheatley?
Yeah, I think I'd just echo the Vice Chair's comments. I think it's working through the appendix. It's quite difficult to find out where we are with a lot of the items. Some of them have, as you say, have finished or not, or never going to happen, and some of them are still ongoing. It does require a bit of completely refacing, I think. Yeah.
Thanks very much, Councillor Wood. I see you've put speak in the chat.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. There's just a couple of points. One is about the Youth Parliament. We were talking about getting a member of the youth group onto the board. Is that still active? And the other point is membership training. As we go forward, the complications of public transport become ever more complicated. And I would think it would be beneficial for the board to get training on the inside of how we go forward in the future, because I can see an awful lot of problems ahead. Is that something that our senior officer would be keen to take forward?
Thanks very much, Andrew. Yeah, we do have a youth representative, Alistair Marshall. I don't think he's with us today. However, they do get invited to the SWestrans board meeting. As for training, I'll put that in the hands of Douglas.
Yes, thank you. It is actually something that we've been discussing as well internally. Now we've got resources and the amount of challenges coming our way. And you're right, Andrew, I think that's what we need to do. Training sessions are something that we can implement. We haven't done some for a few years. I think it's about time we actually got back around to doing that. So more than happy to take that forward.
Are you content with that, Andrew?
As ever. Thank you very much.
Okay, any other observers, members of the public? No? We'll move to the recommendations then. The recommendation is to agree the SWestrans annual report for 2021-22 as attached in the appendix. Are we happy to agree? Take silence as acceptance, nods in the room. Thank you very much, members, and thank you, Grant, for your report. We now move on to agenda item 8, which is the equalities reporting. This report advises of our duties from the Equalities Act 2010 to implement and publish equality outcomes and to report on progress made towards achieving these outcomes. The board set equality outcomes for the period 2021 to 2025 in March in 2021. And an update on these is provided in the Equalities Mainstream Report 2021 to 2023, which is attached as the appendix to this report. Kirsty Dunsmore's here to give anything on the report. Have you anything to highlight or add, Kirsty?
Nothing to add to the report, Chair.
Thank you very much. It's quite a thorough report, members. So, board members first. Any questions? Don't see anyone. Any observers? Questions? Members of the public? I think you got away lightly on that one, Kirsty. Okay, we'll just move to the recommendations. So, one is to note SWestrans' duties under the Equalities Act 2010 and the Equalities Act 2012, bracket Scotland, specific duties, regulations, and 2, to note the SWestrans Equalities Mainstreaming Report 2021 to 2023 as shown in the appendix. Are we happy to note? Yep. Thank you, board members. We now move on to agenda item 9, Regional Transport Strategy Consultation Update. The report provides an update on the progress with the new Regional Transport Strategy and provides a report at the appendix on responses received to the draft Regional Transport Strategy Consultation. Douglas, do you have anything to add to the report?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Nothing to add other than to thank everyone that took time to actually respond. Not a huge number of responses, but of great quality, I think, within the responses that we received. But I'm happy to take any questions on the report, Chair.
Thank you, Douglas. Yeah, it was quite a comprehensive report. There were some interesting responses from stakeholders, you know, from Dumfries and Galloway Council, so say various others, Dumfries and Galloway Green Party as well, I noticed, and also members of the public. So I'll open it up to board members, first of all. Vice Chair, Karen.
Thanks, Jan. Thanks, Douglas. It is a really comprehensive report, and it's good to see how we're looking at those consultation responses and how we might adjust the regional transport strategy as we move forward. I guess you gave me the opportunity to come in on this as well previously. So I think it is, I mean, I know we all recognise how detailed the transport strategy was and how long it is. So that kind of external facing document, I think, is something that we really should spend a little bit of time thinking about how we might do that more efficiently. So I think, or effectively. So I guess that's one issue. And then just understanding the timeline and process of where we go from what we've got now to where we might be in June and how we might get more involved in some of that drafting and scoping work. Thanks. Thanks, Chair.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yes, I thank you for the comments. I agree. Yes, we need that public-facing document with a final strategy will be critical to how we take that forward. The timeline is we're at the moment with Stantec are working on the amendments to the draft strategy. That'll then come to the board in June as the final strategy for agreement. Once that's agreed, it will then go to the Scottish Minister for agreement. We've now got a new Scottish Minister, so they will consider that. They take their time to consider that, ask for some feedback. We get feedback, we can put or ask to make any changes required, etc. We go through that process, at which point we then have, when it's signed off by the Minister, we have the formal strategy in place. I think it's that point. We're in the background, we're also working on a delivery plan. Obviously, we're not just waiting for we're pretty confident that the majority of this is heading in the right direction. So we're working on that delivery plan, and we will also be working on that forward-facing document. And it may be something that as Councillor Wood brought up earlier on as one of the training sessions, that we have a full board session on actually that development of the delivery plan, how we actually then take forward the strategy. Because that's the critical. This is a 20-year strategy. It's a significant amount of delivery within that, and we can't deliver it ourselves. We need partners to deliver it. We need to do it in collaboration, and a lot to be done, Chair.
Yeah. Thanks. Do you want to come back in, Karen?
Yeah, thanks, Douglas. That's really helpful. And it's not often I volunteer for other meetings, but I wonder whether there's an opportunity for us just to have a more detailed conversation with Stantec as they're developing the strategy itself. So it's really, as you say, it's a really important document. It's 20 years, and we as a board really need to own it and feel it's ours. So I wonder whether there is that opportunity just to have that kind of more engaged session, as well as you say, looking at the delivery plan. I think also an opportunity, and again, if we're writing to the new Transport Minister, just to give a flavour of some of our thoughts in there as well. So it's not just about money, it's about what we're doing to kind of shape transport for the future. Thanks.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, if we're going to be writing to the new Transport Minister, I'd rather be on the front foot rather than the back foot, but points well made. Douglas?
Yes, and I think that's a very good point. I think it would be useful to have that session with the board, with Stantec, prior to the final strategy coming to the boards, which is June the 30th from memory. We'll try and fit it in when someone's on holiday, Chair.
Is that me? Thanks very much. I see we've got Councillor Walters. Keith?
Morning. Yeah, I just wanted to agree what was being said about the need for a simpler version of the thing to go out to the public as well, because I thought that was demonstrated yesterday at the council, the advantages of having a simpler version of some documents. And yes, I would also volunteer for a meeting which involves some sort of more training about the process, because there's still we're still getting feedback from people about what we are responsible for and what we aren't responsible for. On the actual document itself, there's obviously a lot of feedback about buses and about the integration of buses and stuff like that. I couldn't see anywhere particular about the possibility of the council running more of its own buses in terms of running their own buses as opposed to buying in commercial services. I'm not sure. Is that might be something I've missed, or is that something that wasn't fed back by organisations?
Thanks, Keith. Douglas?
Yeah, that legislation relates to, in the main, to Dumfries and Galloway Council. This is a SWestrans document, although it is a regional transport strategy. It is picked up within I'm trying to remember, the 59 priorities. There's within that, there's an element there, and it will come out of the delivery plan as well, Keith. So it's just not within the consultation paper, because there's no one directly referenced that to any great degree. So we couldn't put every single word of every single consultation response in, or would there be no more paper left in?
So could I just come back on that then? So what you're saying is it's not in the consultation, as in it's not in the consultation responses, but it will be referred to in the actual transport strategy, which we'll have a chance to discuss before the June meeting. Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Yes, absolutely.
Thanks, Keith. Yeah, and I take your point about I think it was called the Easy Read on the IGP paper, or the health paper yesterday. Yeah, good point. Councillor Wood. Andrew.
Thank you, Chair. It's just like to say, it is actually a very good stab at our first report on the case for change. But what I would like to make sure is that we don't lose what the last Transport Minister suggested to us, that this could be a pilot scheme for Scotland. And I would very much like to ensure that the new Minister of Transport is made very well aware of how his predecessor was very favourable of what we are doing down here. So it's really just to assert that we don't lose the fact that there was the possibility of support coming from the Scottish Government to help us take this forward. Thank you very much.
Yes, thanks, Chair. And I was at that meeting, obviously, with Councillor Wood at the time, and that was very much said. I think our letter to the new Transport Minister is growing arms and legs, but yeah, I think that's very good. I think you're right. We need to be on the front foot with particularly with the areas that are giving us significant concern and significant challenges.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, Douglas. Any observers? Graham Wheatley.
Just to say, Chair, that regarding the comments by the lead officer, the clarity with where we're going in the next 6 months or so, and I don't know whether you said perhaps a pre-board meeting to discuss what goes forward at the June meeting, and will that include observers as well, or will it just be the board members?
Chair, off the top of my head, I'm happy to involve observers as well, if the board are comfortable with that. The observers are here to bring their knowledge and experience to the board. And me.
Thanks. I don't see any dissent from board members. So, yeah, we'd certainly welcome that. Absolutely. Any other observers? Ron?
I would just like to say it was a very good report and a lot of good information in it. And I was very particularly happy to see that there was a possibility of looking at a local service on the West Coast Main Line being a consideration, which is long overdue, but very good report and well done.
Thank you very much. Any members of the public? Yeah. Could you just say your name for the record?
Speak. Right, there we go. It's Joe Lynch. I've lived in the area for about 2 years now. I live down in the Rins, and I'd have to say I was unaware that the regional transport strategy was being revised. Clearly, the public consultation period has moved on. That was October to January. I've read the board papers. I don't have a copy here, but I downloaded them, so I'm aware of what's being discussed. I think there's a number of things. I looked at the consultees that had responded. Now, in the Rins, Kirkcombe Council responded, Stonykerk did not. Now, Stonykerk is my local council. Had I been aware of the RTS, I would have got them to engage in this. Also see that not many of the elected, the MPs, MSPs, haven't responded to this. It's a very limited restriction. I think the point was made earlier about being more outward facing. I think that's an extremely valuable point. But if I don't know about it, and I do take an interest in transport, the reason I know about SWestrans is because I've been exchanging some correspondence with Douglas about some things, as he's well aware. So I looked up the SWestrans webpage, and hence I'm here today. Now, normally I work on a Friday, but today, this is my treat. Or not, I don't know. I think the other point that was made earlier about the budget, well, a couple of points. One is that the Vice Chair said the budget sort of ties everything else together, and there's no question of that. If you've got an RTS, you've got to commit budget to it. Where's it going to come from? The Chair made the point earlier that the Scottish Government haven't changed their contribution of £259,000 since 2012. And at the moment, inflation is over 10%. One of the things that I've corresponded with Douglas about is real-time information, because as a new resident, I've had to get to learn the network, and I went to Stranraer to catch the 500, and quite simply, I didn't know which bus stop it went from. There was no information at the bus stop. There used to be a real-time system. As you know, it was decommissioned in 2016. The new RTS has an aspiration to have a new RTI system. Great. What's going to pay for it? So it really comes back. I won't continue, but I think the point is that budget is key to this, and I don't think you've got the budget.
Yep, thanks very much. I did notice myself when I was looking through the respondees that are MPs, MSPs didn't respond. I had one particular MSP get in touch with me saying, "Oh, when does the consultation finish?" And or when did it start? I says it's been going since October. You know, so it's been highly publicised as far as I'm aware. Why people don't engage, I can't really answer that, but I'll get Douglas if he can. You want to respond to any of the points that were made?
On the advertising, I don't do social media. So if you're relying on social media, there's a problem. Many people don't. I do read the Stranraer Free Press regularly, and I don't remember seeing it in that. So I think there's a danger that with social media, you move to that almost to the exclusion of the old media, which I may be old-fashioned, I may be stuck in a rut, but there are still some of us around who don't do that. So
I'll let Douglas respond.
Yes, we made as best attempt we could within the resources we had to get the information out there. It included the written media. It was actually Dumfries and Galloway Standard on advice from the council's team. That's the one paper that covers the whole of Dumfries and Galloway. I'm aware that there are other local papers that people read. We can only take the advice we're given and do what we've done. With relation to how we fund the interventions going forward, that will come with the delivery plan, and it will require future board decisions, some particularly difficult ones, depending on what funding we have available. We are constantly seeking other sources of funding. I'm writing to the Transport Minister on behalf of the Chair, and that will include a funding aspect. If you want to make public and sustainable transport the option to head towards net zero, then it has to be appropriately funded. And that includes proper information. We've had this discussion, and I won't go on about it, Chair, but there are a number of elements that will come out through the delivery plan. It's a very ambitious strategy, in my view, to meet the needs of our region. But to do that, we need that funding. And within that delivery plan, we have to then be assured that the board are making the decisions appropriately to actually put the correct money in the correct places to lever in further funding to allow us to deliver what we need to deliver.
Thank you, Douglas. If there are no other questions, we'll go to the recommendations, which is 1, to note the progress with the new regional transport strategy. 2, note the content of the draft regional transport strategy consultation report at the appendix. And 3, note that this is intended to bring the final regional transport strategy to the next board meeting in June 2023, after which it will be submitted to the Scottish Ministers for approval. And we did agree to include the observers and have a meeting with Stantec before that goes forward to the Scottish Ministers. Happy to note and agree those? Yep. Now move on to agenda item 10, which is the local bus network update. This report provides further updates on the review of our supported local bus services and seeks board agreement for the procurement to seek replacement contracts. Douglas has given us the significance of this work. Could you give a summary of the main points of the report, please? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'll just highlight a couple of areas of the report. The areas I'd like to highlight really are in section 3.3 to 3.6, which the report summarises the review of the support and analysis of all supported services in the region that we currently pay for. The outcome of this is shown in Appendix 1 of the paper, and back up on the scoring criteria used in Appendix 2. It is a quantitative and qualitative, as much as possible, analysis of the existing network, and gives evidence on actual use through demand. It provides the board with a prioritised framework to assist in any decision making in the future once the outcome of the procurement is known. The other area of the report is really around in paragraphs 3.10 to 3.12 of the report, which highlights the again, the significant financial challenges has been mentioned here already today of maintaining the current services we have. In 3.11 of the report, it goes on, SWestrans can only provide services that are affordable within the cash limited revenue budget we have, and we've got very limited options to actually seek further funding, as you're aware. So the prioritised framework will assist with any decision making if needed. Hopefully it won't be needed, but you never know. And the final element I'd just like to highlight there is that I've spent, myself and my team have spent significant time along with some initial work with operators to look at alternative specifications where we're removing duplication of service to try and to allow us to put out some specifications that amalgamate routes, that remove additional vehicles from the services that are not necessary, and in some instances actually to reduce the frequency of journeys and the number of days operated. And these are all discussed throughout in paragraph 12 of the report, and there's a lot there. I'm aware there's a lot in this report. There's a lot of work to get to this point, to get to the start of the procurement process. However, I'm more than happy to take any questions on anything within the paper, Chair.
Thank you very much, Douglas. Board members. Councillor Walters. Keith.
Sorry, I'm not sure whether I want to bring this up now, but while we're talking about local buses, I wanted to bring this issue about the commercial bus services, because I couldn't see somewhere to actually bring this up. But I know we don't have direct control over commercial bus services, but this is about the buses to the schools, and whether we could get some sort of whether we could actually approach Stagecoach to get a reassurance that everything possible is going to be done to ensure that buses to secondary schools are going to run on time during the exam periods. Because I've had one of our youth counsellors has been in touch to raise this issue about schools from Heath Hall and Locker Briggs to Dumfries High School. And he has contacted Stagecoach directly and hasn't got anywhere. And so he's asked that perhaps we as a board, that we could take that forward and try and push this, because obviously it's crucial for people being able to get to the schools on time for their exams. And I know, yes, it is a commercial service, but we are a partnership, and it's obviously we've got a responsibility to school pupils. So is that something that we could do either as a letter from Chair or our Chief Officer?
Yeah, thanks, Keith. My understanding is that schools transport comes under the communities. However, there are service buses that also fill certain gaps in there, but I'll let Douglas respond. Thanks.
Yes, thanks, Chair. Yeah, I've also responded directly to the youth councillor as well on this matter, again advising that it is a commercial service. The responsibility is Stagecoach. The pupils who are travelling are not entitled to free home-to-school transport, so they're travelling on the local bus network as a normal passenger. However, there's no harm. I'm more than happy to advise Stagecoach that we're aware of this. It could be an issue. And depending on the road conditions in every morning and coming out of Heath Hall, particularly, Keith, as you'll be aware, can be quite challenging. But Stagecoach have been operating these routes for many, many years, so they have good experience of the road conditions, and will be able to provide some assurance, I'm sure, that their timetable is fit for purpose and will meet the times that it's required to meet. But I'm more than happy to discuss that with senior management within Stagecoach to ensure that they're full awareness that this is a concern for young people across our region.
Has that been helpful, Keith?
Yes, if we could do that, and also if we could encourage Stagecoach management to go back to the youth councillor directly, that would be really helpful. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, happy with that, Keith. Any other board members? Karen, Vice Chair.
Thanks, Chair. I'm sorry, I clearly need the training that Councillor Wood was talking about, so I'm slightly embarrassed to ask this question, but I'll do it anyway. The interlinkage between these services and commercial services. Is there any potential for any of these services to become a commercial service? Or is that just impossible given the nature of the kind of demand? But just, I think, probably a broader question for me just to improve my understanding. So I apologise for asking the question, but I'd just like to understand it. I think there's also a link to what we've been saying about external facing activity. There are clearly some difficult decisions ahead, and I think Councillor Woods already alluded to that. The more we can talk about some of the challenges we're facing with the finite budget and getting that budget to deliver what we need, the better, so that people can understand why some of the decisions are being made. We've suffered, I think is not too strong a word, the impact of not doing that very effectively, as we saw last year with the Dumfries-Edinburgh bus route. So I think an opportunity for us to learn from that about how we start positioning some of the decisions we're inevitably going to have to take. Thanks, Chair.
Yeah, fair point. No other board members? Do you want to respond to that? Or? Yeah, go on, Douglas.
Thank you, Chair. I would just, around commercial services, yes, the 1985 Transport Act allowed the bus operators to determine which services they want to operate commercially. So those are the ones that are profitable generally. We are not, as an authority, allowed to impact on those routes, do anything on those routes. We can talk to them, but we're not allowed to influence anything. The route those services are in their complete control. The likelihood of any of these services becoming commercial is very, 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 very low. So that was enough varies in there, I'm not sure, but we have been supporting these services and these routes for a significant period of time. It's more of a contraction of commercial services as we've seen last year, which then causes us issues to how do we replace those going forward. So it's very challenging, but yes. And yes, on the public facing aspect, we talk about this at board meetings. Not a lot of people listen to SWestrans board meetings. We do need to get some messaging out there that these are going to be difficult decisions but we don't know what the decisions are until we get through the procurement process.
Thanks, Douglas. I see Jim Dempster's back. We're on item 10, Jim. I don't know if you've got anything to say on that item, local bus network update. No. Okay, I'll move to observers.
Is that the exempt one, John?
No, we're not on the exempt one. We're on the local bus network update, item 10 on the public agenda.
I've got you, yes, no, I'm fine with that.
You're fine with that? Okay, thank you. Observers, Graham?
Just to clarify, the sort of the contract descriptions, or proposed tender descriptions, and in the sort of appendix, is that can't be all trips, because some of that, this is just the more substantial packages of contracts. And just to pick up the Vice Chair's comment about commercial services, I came in from to Thorold on Houston's commercial service 944 from to Thorold, and the bus was full, which was great because it fills a gap between the commercial stagecoach services. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, no, Graham, there's get my words out the right way. There are specifications there for all the existing network on an as-is basis. These are additional ones to try and mitigate any sort of cost increases as well, so that we may need to choose these options should we. There's still a similar level of service across most of these routes. It's just where services have been, the two buses been operating a service with a small change to the timetables, we can put the two contracts together to make it one bus working rather than a two bus working, which in theory should reduce cost.
Thanks, Douglas. Any other observers? No. Members of the public? Yep.
Quick question if I can. Most of them seem to relate to the eastern end of Dumfries and Galloway. Is there a similar exercise planned at the western end?
Douglas?
Chair, yes, we've looked at all of the areas. There's, as you come from the western end of the region, you'll know there's very little flexibility to take or to move much on that side to make any efficiencies. Where the route that you're on is a 2-hourly frequency at best, so it's very. There's not a lot of flexibility to do any of the moving. Because there's a much more dense bus network on the east of the region, that gave us that opportunity to look at efficiencies by joining contracts together and trying to squeeze vehicles and mileage out of systems.
Thanks, Douglas. I see Jim Dempsey has got his hand up and Andrew would want to speak. I'm not sure which one's first. I'll take Jim.
Thanks, Jim, and I'm hoping Andrew will not mind. I'm happy to have him go first if he's got something desperate to say.
Andrew?
No, Jim, I'll let you go first with your eloquent ways.
Thank you. Thanks, Andrew. No, just when we're on this, Chairman, and we're talking about restructuring some of the journeys, are we incorporating or trying to incorporate active travel? Because one of the issues I have, and I'm not going to labour it today, but is that we don't link the bus timetabling and the train timetabling when that opportunity presents itself. No, currently, drivers tend to think, or at least appear to think, that their only instruction is to drive the bus. And in actual fact, we should be linking with walking, cycling and train networks when that opportunity presents itself. So I'm hoping Douglas will take this opportunity if it presents itself, to ensure that an active travel approach is made when they're adjusting timetables, and that's wherever it is in the region. Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Andrew.
Thanks, Jim. Douglas?
Yeah, absolutely. It's part of our role is to look at that integration as we're developing timetables to the best we can within the resource that's available to try and still meet the bus movements as well. And that link with active travel, it will be completely embedded in everything we do going forward.
That been helpful, Jim?
Yeah, I can't help. I can't wait to see the 221 waiting at the train station until passengers are light before they get the bus. I'm sure it'll make life easier for everybody, and it'll increase the bus usage, which is the driver for our organisation. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Jim. Andrew?
Thank you, Chair. No, in all fairness, Jim raises a very good point. But on the back of that, I would like to ask, how is the monitoring going with usage of our buses at present? Do we have an up-to-date sort of schedule as to what's actually happening?
It's in Appendix 1, but I'll let Douglas come in.
Yes, thanks. Yes, and yes, Andrew, we certainly do. We've got quite good data. It's in Appendix 1. It's in very small text, unfortunately. I do have A3 copies here, but I forgot to hand them out, Chair, so apologies for that. But we do have, we get data on a very regular basis now from the operators. You can see the figures there. We're still, as we reported previously, still down in certain categories. So the over 60s category, young people are up, old people are down, adults are still slightly down compared to what we were pre-COVID. But we are still averaging around about 60 to 80% below, 60 to 80% what we were pre-COVID.
Thanks, Douglas.
Chair, it's just to say, I was aware of this appendix, but a lot of reporting that we get at committee meetings tends to be 2 months behind, and I can't see any dates on this. So is this the most up-to-date?
Douglas?
This is the most up-to-date annual data we have. So we took it was when we were doing the analysis, so it was up to the January, Andrew. So.
That's lovely. No, I appreciate that, but we're now heading into April. So it's as I thought, it's a few months behind. When would we be likely to get an update?
Sorry, Chair. Yeah, we're happy to monitor this on an ongoing basis. What we do, Andrew, as you know, is your time from Chair, we take an annual snapshot, which we do every year. And that's what we report to the board, which then gives us that measure over a number of years. But we are proactively getting information from the bus companies. We've spent a bit of time on this exercise to get us to a point where we can get robust procurement out, I think is what we're looking for. That monitoring of data, I've now got 2 public transport staff, and they will keep an eye on data, and we will continue to update the board as and when we have that ability. So it's just a matter of getting the data, analysing the data, and presenting to the board. So we can bring an update in June as well when we're talking about tender awards, hopefully.
Has that been helpful, Andrew?
That's been extremely helpful, because we don't want to be making decisions on historic data. So, yeah, very much appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew, and thanks, Douglas. If there's no more questions, we'll go to the recommendations, which is 1, to note the update on the review of all current supported local bus services to meet the delivery challenges previously identified in 2023-24. 2, note the update on progress for replacing local bus contracts as presented in Table 1. And 3, agree the procurement that will seek prices for all existing supported local bus services on a like-for-like basis and on the alternative specifications highlighted in paragraph 3.12. Are we happy to note and agree? Nods in the room. I'll take silence as acceptance. Thank you very much, board members. We now move on to agenda item 11. Any other business which the Chair may decide is urgent due to the need for a decision. I have no items of urgent business. However, the board does have a confidential item to discuss at item 12. So I'd like to thank the observers and members of the public for your attendance today. It is recommended that members of the board agree to consider the items of business in private and exclude the press, members of the public and observers from the meeting in terms of paragraphs 6, 8, 9 and 10 of Schedule 7A of the Local Government Scotland Act 1973. Are we happy to agree that, board? Nods in the room.
Agreed.
Thank you, Jim. Okay, so thanks very much.
Just a quick parish notice, Chair. On the 23rd of June, West Coast Rail 250 is having one of its General Council meetings here in Dumfries. It's organised by Councillor Lowe. All welcome.
Thank you very much. Hugh, you wanted to come in?
We've got a new bus shelter in Lochside, Oliver Road, but we've no timetable. Why?
I think we could take this out with the meeting, Hugh, if that's okay.
Quite happy to find
You're not answering me.
I'll answer you. Yeah, sorry, Chair. Yes, because our timetable, our publicity package is not working at this time. But we are. We're on it, and Jason is at this moment, well, maybe not at this moment because I think he's listening to this meeting, is typing up a Word version of it to put into the shelter for you.
It's very nice to get a new bus shelter.
I'm sure it is, Hugh. Thank you very much. So can I ask board members, we'll just take a 5-minute recess. And can you go into the new Teams invite that's been sent out for the exempt item? Thank you, board members.